So we've got a bunch of new weapons in update 4.0, and one of those is the AC9 SMG. Today I wanted to go through the best loadout that you guys can use for the AC9, as well as just some general tips and tricks in order to help you guys do as well as you possibly can with the new SMG. It's a lot of fun to use, it is relatively decent as well, and if you guys are interested in seeing more of these for all of the other new weapons in Season 4, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications, as I will be covering all of the other weapons as well over the coming days and weeks. But with that being said, let's get stuck into some general tips and tricks for the AC9. So the AC9 is a very easy weapon to unlock in the Battle Pass. I believe it is unlocked at level 10, which shouldn't take you guys very long at all. With the first batch of weekly missions, you should be able to get that done in pretty much one sitting. So it's very quick to unlock, and once you do, obviously you guys can jump in and start using it straight away. Now the first tip I want to give, and I'll obviously give this for all of the other ones as well, to get all of these attachments for the loadout that I'll touch on later on in the video, the easiest way to do that is literally just to go and play solo. You can play against bots and get all of the kills on bots, and that will count towards the progression for every single attachment on the weapon. Obviously you can do it in multiplayer as well if you just prefer playing multiplayer. I obviously prefer playing multiplayer too, but sometimes when there are attachments that are unlocked later on that are really good, you'll need up to 360 kills to actually unlock those attachments, and to be honest, it's just way easier to do that against bots. You can rack up hundreds of kills in a single game, chuck on some sort of podcast or watch some YouTube videos and play it in the background, and before you know it, you're gonna have every single attachment unlocked. So that right there is the first #1 tip for this weapon and for every weapon. Get those attachments in solo. It is a hell of a lot faster than trying to grind through multiplayer, unless of course you guys just want to jump in and use it with the base attachments, because it is still fun to use either way. Now obviously, being an SMG, it is obviously going to be best used up close and personal, even more so with this gun because it is very similar to the K30, where it's got a very high rate of fire. It really is that kind of spray and pray type of weapon in terms of being able to use hip fire and just having a crazy rate of fire. It doesn't have a very long range on it at all, so it is definitely best used up close and personal. To be honest, not that different from how you would use a shotgun, because it is that close quarters of a weapon, and that's really the best way to describe it. Now I did mention the K30, and I will say realistically this is just a worse version of the K30. The K30 is definitely the better option of the two, so if you're trying to use the best close quarters weapon to just dominate the battlefield, then I would honestly just use the K30, but obviously being a new weapon, it's always fun to use, and it does still have a place in that SMG class. So just because it's a little bit worse, that doesn't mean you can't use it or anything like that, but like I said, realistically it is just a slightly worse version of the K30. Now something that is the case with this weapon, but realistically just any SMG in the game, and to be honest even any weapon at all, something that goes very underrated is hip fire. I see a lot of people not really making the most of hip fire. Obviously with something like an LMG it's not ideal to do that, but with an SMG, hipfire is actually really good, especially at the ranges that you're going to be using this weapon. It is really good in those genuine close quarters areas where you're literally meters away from enemies, and by saving the time from aiming down sights, as well as just having a bit of a clearer view of what you're shooting at, hipfire is a really underrated tool. I don't see that many people actually doing it, and so definitely make the most of that hipfire. Obviously when it's at that sort of mid-range or mid-range for an SMG anyway, definitely use the ADS. It's not like you always have to use hipfire, but it is something that I think is very underrated, especially within Battlefield, because I think compared to a lot of other shooters out there, hipfire is actually really solid to use in Battlefield. Now the one downside to this weapon is its lack of ammo. The first clip that you actually start off with is just a 30 round clip, and that is the close combat ammo, and those 30 rounds will literally just disappear within what feels like half a second. So the main downside to this weapon is its lack of ammo. What I will say to counter that is obviously just use the extended mags, which I'll get to when I get to the loadout, but secondly, it is actually really good to use the new shotgun secondary to actually pull that out when the ammo is all depleted from the AC9. That will happen quite a bit. It's happened to me so many times where I'm spraying at an enemy, they're on like 3 health, and then I've fired my last bullet, and before I'd actually unlocked the shotgun secondary, I would pull out a pistol and maybe miss a few shots. The shotgun secondary is really handy to run with the AC9, simply because it's a pretty similar playstyle in terms of you've got to get really up close and personal to use it, and so you don't really have to change your playstyle when you actually pull out the shotgun secondary. So these two are a match made in heaven. Use that AC9, try and get a few kills with it, but if you do run out of ammo, quickly pull out that shotgun and you can hopefully finish off the last couple of enemies. Now lastly, just getting into the actual loadout for the weapon, what I will say is it is obviously very early days, so within a few weeks maybe this will change depending on how much I've played with it, but the best loadout that I've found so far is as follows. Now in terms of the sight, it's obviously just completely personal preference. The iron sights are really solid on this weapon, or for me personally, I do like using just a regular red dot sight of any of the different type of variants. So realistically, just any of your preferences for sight. Obviously you don't want to run like a long range sight, but anything that's a red dot sight or iron sights is definitely very handy. In terms of the ammo, you obviously want to run the close quarters extended ammo, which is the 40 round mag. That's the most ammo you can carry on the AC9, which to be honest is still just not enough. It's definitely still going to run out of ammo very, very quickly, but a 40 round mag is better than a 30 round mag, so definitely get that close combat extended ammo equipped. For the underbarrel, I personally think that the STNR laser sight is the best, just because it can really hone in at that hipfire accuracy. You can use something like the LWG grip, which will help a little bit with the recoil control and accuracy. So if you're not the biggest fan of hipfire, then definitely chuck on that LWG grip. But for me, I do prefer the STNR laser sight. And then lastly, for the barrel, for me, it's a bit of a toss-up between the tactical compensator and just the factory barrel, honestly. I feel like all of the other ones have too much of a downside that they're not really worth using, and so the tactical compensator or the factory barrel are definitely the best options here. It just depends on how you guys play. So give both of those a try, see if you feel better with one than the other. But weirdly enough, for this one, the factory barrel is a pretty solid option, which for most weapons in the game, I generally don't go with the factory options, but like I said, none of the other attachments for the AC9 seem to be all that useful. So those are the two options that I think are the best for the AC9. Now lastly, this isn't so much the loadout, but the class you want to use with the AC9 is obviously the support class. You get the proficiency bonus with that, which is a faster ADS speed. Now if you're running around hip firing, that is not an absolute necessity, so obviously you can still run around with say McKay or Sundance and use the AC9. It's not do or die, but to try and get the best bang for your buck, it is definitely best to try and use the right class for the right weapon, and obviously for the support class, their proficiency comes with the SMG class. So that right there is the loadout, as well as the best class that you can use for the AC9. It's also not a bad idea to actually run an ammo crate. If you're playing as say Falk, you've obviously got your health right there with you, and then you can bring an ammo crate to actually keep yourself fully stocked on ammo, because you will run out of ammo very quickly with the AC9. It is an absolute pea shooter, so just be sure to keep that in mind. But anyway guys, that is going to do it for some quick tips and tricks, as well as a general loadout for the AC9, the new SMG within Battlefield 2042. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know whether you change anything from my loadout, as well as any other tips that you guys might have for the new weapon. It is definitely a lot of fun to use, and it can definitely hang out there on the battlefield, especially on Flashpoint, because it is obviously such a close quarters map. So definitely get out there on the battlefield and give this one a try. But that is going to do it for this one. Thank you guys very much for watching. Like I said, there will be the same sort of video for all of the new weapons in the coming days and weeks. But with that being said, I will see you guys out on the battlefield.